Right, boys and girls, we're getting started on this PDW build built around the SLR receiver from Dytac as well as the SLR front end. This gun has served me well. It's been in many different variations, but this is how I've ran it with a Mark IV front end. However, it's time to pimp this up even further. The only part I think I've got left to get hold of is a grip, which I've ordered. So I'll be pulling these green bits off. So let's get started. We need to strip this thing down first. We do have to modify the standard trigger box to fit the B15 receiver. We actually have to drill a hole and file down the valve, the bit that hits the valve, for clearance. For the ambi bolt release, so that's going to be interesting. So I think what we'll do, we'll set the upper to one side and we'll focus on the lower half. Let's get this thing taken apart, stock off. Let's pull the recoil spring out, set that to one side. It's going to be a pain to pull this trigger box open. They are notoriously tight, but let's get to doing this PDW build. So we're going to pop the selector out, and we're also going to pop this pin and the rearward screw. So we'll pop the rearward screw out. I'm going to cut out the part of me removing this trigger box because it's probably going to take me a bit. I really do not like taking these out because they are so tight. But I suppose in this case, if we break the receiver, it's not too much of an issue. Are you going to pop out there? Because we've got a new fresh receiver to go on there. So, but I would like to preserve the receiver. It's always good to have a spare. So I'll pop that pin out. Now we need to get the trigger box out. We need to take the mag release out first. So let's pull this out, which you need to be careful you don't snatch your fingers. Push and twist. That comes out. Put something over this because it's going to pop. There we go. And the spring can come out here. And we need to get this out. So I'm probably going to clip the video here because, you know, in the interest of time and all that. Okay. So I've just got the trigger pack out. They're really tight in these receivers. And the only other thing you'll see I've pulled off is the stock. And the latch just to remove it out of the way. I'm going to have to reuse the pins and bits and pieces on these, so it's worth us taking them out anyway. So you just put something between that pin and the channel and then just rotate the pin, and that will allow it to pop out. So there's the front pin and there's the rear pin. And then the only other thing left on this receiver here is the faux pins. And the trigger guard, of course, which we don't need, so we'll pop that to one side. And this is where it's going to get tricky because we're going to need to modify the trigger box. We have to drill a hole through this channel here to 2.5, and we also need to remove the valve knocker because we need to clearance that as well for the pin that's going to go in there to stop it interfering with the pin that will come through on the opposite side. So I need to go grab a drill. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Right, I've grabbed my drill and my 2.5 drill bit. So what we need to do, we need to pull this thing apart. You'll see this trigger pack is completely standard. I'm hoping it goes into the Dytac receiver a little bit easier than the Marui ones, but we'll find out together. These 3 screws. 1, 2 and 3. And flip it over, and then we can pull the casing apart like so. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this part. We need to modify this. I'll be putting the pictures up, if I remember, in the edit of what needs to be done. But you can find it on Ditac's website. I'm just going to be popping the forwardmost screw back in just to hold it together. And then we're going to drill a hole in this bad boy. So I'll be doing this off camera just so I can focus on getting it straight. That was a pain in the backside. I ended up actually doing it on the drill press. So if you're doing this at home with a hand drill, yeah, the problem that you've got is you're drilling through a channel where there's a wall, and all that 2.5mm drill bit wants to do is just veer off. Even in the drill press it was pinging off, so I've just had to make do out of a bad situation and get it as close as possible. We now need to channel this piece out here, so I'm going to do that and then we'll be back on camera. All I'm going to say to you is if you haven't got some tools, you're going to struggle with that. So drilling the hole first and then channeling that out, what I actually did was roughed this out on the milling machine because there's quite a lot of material you need to move there, and then did the final bits with a file. So we're going to pop this thing back together. It's a hell of a faff to get you know, an ambidextrous bolt release. I suppose you could leave this part out if you wasn't too bothered, but I kind of want it to work. So there the pin goes through. It's not super straight. That's because the drill bit wanted to walk everywhere. So, oh my god. Clearance that a little bit more. Now that fits on. So let's say your bolt catch is raised. You push this pin from the other side, and it will, when this is centered, push the bolt release down. So if you're not looking to do any of that modification, yeah, maybe stay away from this kit. But let's get on to the next part. I fitted one of the springs from the kit onto the bolt release just because, from what I can gather from the instructions, that's what you're meant to do. But well, we'll find out, I suppose, won't we? So we can fit our Z plate on there like so. Put that little piece of plastic on there, and we'll get this installed into the receiver. It does go in and out of the receiver much easier than the Marui one. It can slide about a bit once in there. I'm going to pop this pin in to hold that in place. There we go. We've got the fake anti-reversal pins, so I'll pop those in as well. So you've got a little bar, and then we've got a screw. I think this is a 2mm, 2mm grub screw, or cap head screw, whatever you want to call it, in one side. Not sure if we have to do this first or last, but I'm just going with it. And we'll fit the opposite side in as well. I will come back and Loctite those screws in place because I don't want them coming loose. Very cool. And we can, let's pop the selector in. The selector is very cool. So what you can actually see is there's no grub screws or screws or anything like that holding this in. You just push this little button in the center, and then you can pull the selector off. So I'm just going to pull that off because so it's out the way, and we're going to pop this into place. There we go. Just a bit of wiggle wiggle. It's just very stiff. Very stiff. Hopefully that loosens up over time, but it's nice and solid when it's in position, but it's very stiff to move. The metal's like, I think they say it's, you know, 60-61 or something like that, but the metal's got that crunchy feeling to it, like it's cheap. But you know, let's not knock it until we've got there. So this is our new cap for the back. Which will be held in by a grub screw. This is going to probably be a long video, but I'll perhaps get the trigger pack in and then we'll stop and go to the next episode. That's that in place. We do actually get pins with the receiver. Here's the rear one, but the pins come in from the bottom instead of the back. So 1, 2. You'll see how nasty the pinholes have been drilled. It's like they've been drilled afterwards or filed afterwards because they don't quite fit. They are really, really tight. See, that one's stuck. What we'll do for now, we'll pop the green grip on just so it holds this spring in place. Otherwise that's going to disappear. Right, screw in. And at least that will hold this spring in. So it's temporary grip. So that's in, the rear pin's in. As tight as it is. I mean, you can see all the filing that they've done. I haven't seen stuff like that since Celsius. They used to do that a lot. Put the rear screw in. I hope that loosens up just a little bit, just a bit grabby. Okay, spring not meant to fit in there. Oh, there we go. Tight fit. Very carefully. Put this into place. Now with this one we need to put the spring in. Then we put the pin in. And then we do the grub screw. If I can get it on the driver. Again, I'm going to come back and Loctite these in place. Now we have that fitted. So let's say the bolt releases up. So it does work. That seems to be right there where it needs to be. There is a little hole on the back section where you can put a little grub screw which comes in the packet, and you could adjust the tension on that. But when that comes up, pretty much in place anyway. That spring that they supply is binding, so I might end up switching that out. I'll do all the fine tuning afterwards. Mag release, let's push that in. Mag release in, mag release spring, and mag release button. There we go. Mag release, bolt release, ambi bolt release. Yeah, I think I need to swap that spring out with the original, so I'll do that afterwards. That's all fitted. Let's get the standard parts put in this little bag. Standard rear pin. We need to put the front pin in, which we need to use the new one. Spring, detent pin. Again, holes drilled and filed out to fit. You always hear good reviews about this kit, but this one, I always seem to get the bad parts. That's in. That works. And there is the lower bilt. Oh, that rear pin's a problem. It does go in, and I imagine it would be tight, but you know, it's going to annoy me. Perhaps it'll wear in. So there's the trigger pack fitted. We'll probably leave that there for one video because it's probably going to be very long with a lot of swearing and cursing cut out. But that's the trigger pack in. That's part one. We're going to be changing the grip. Don't worry about that. Next, we need to fit the stock to complete the lower. We'll be fitting the 5KU one on there and popping the buffer spring and everything like that. Not too sure if I need to clip the buffer spring down or it's fine as it is. We'll find out. But it's going to reduce the travel of the bolt anyway, which is neither here or there. We got this far. I think I did try a magazine in when I first had a look at the kit, and the magazine was quite tight. In the receiver. But it works. I imagine a lot of this is just running it in. Probably have to sit there one evening and just slap mags in and pull them out and just get the mag well worn in. But it was very tight when I pulled it out of the box, and I just did it a couple of times and it seemed to sort of loosen up a little bit. Selector, it selects nice. It's just got a very bitey release. Who knows? Perhaps it will loosen up. Perhaps we'll have to whack a load of grease on it. We'll be having it back apart anyway, because I'll swap that spring out. Because that one seems to just bind up a little bit. I'm sure it said to fit that spring when I opened it up, but this part and this part are for the upper. Very nice there. And that'll go in to hold the hop unit and barrel in. Very cool indeed. But we'll leave it there and we'll see you in part 2. Thanks very much for watching, and from me and Bench, I'll see you in the next video.